G'day. Bec and my story is one of light and shade, mess and tidying up, complexity and then finding solace in a simple and ordinary life. It is a story of slow and deep transformation for both of us. Bec and I experienced many similar things in our lives: drug and alcohol use from an early age, complicated relationships with our dads, a family that loved us. We both did prison time, and we both got to a place where we desperately wanted a different life. I was raised in a family that didn't want for anything materially. Mum and Dad were business people. They worked hard and did long hours. I'm grateful for the many good things that my parents provided. My dad instilled a strong work ethic in me, and Mum consistently took care of us, even though she was tired and working long days. In year 9, I began experimenting with drugs. Mum and Dad worked nights, so me, my brothers and others would be out drinking, doing drugs and getting up to no good. I knew not all the kids were like me, but I was trying to numb my pain and sense of brokenness. I connected with others facing similar struggles, and together we formed a dysfunctional sense of connection and belonging. After being expelled from school, my father got me a job at a motorcycle shop. I was drawn to troublemakers and started taking speed, smoking weed, and later on was introduced to heroin. Heroin changed everything, marking the start of my journey into full-blown addiction. I first went to prison at 20, and I spent most of my 20s there, 7 birthdays and about 5 Christmases. My formative years were shaped behind bars, where I made connections, moved contraband, and gained a reputation for getting things done. I often reflect on my gifts: building relationships, networking, creativity, and communication. Unfortunately, I initially used these gifts in the underworld, and I'm happy to say that today I use these same gifts for good. But life in prison is no walk in the park. While I was in prison, my older brother died. Troy was a bright and beautiful man, but had suffered from serious depression. In a bid to help him, I made the same introduction to him that had been made to me. I introduced him to heroin. I had to go to Troy's funeral in handcuffs, and it took me years to forgive myself for my part in his death. And to this day, I feel his absence. I miss my brother. Sitting in my cell, burdened by my past, I wanted to change, but I didn't know how. After I got out of jail, I progressed in the world of organised crime and quickly acquired money, motorbikes and cars. I was taking trips to Thailand, living out my wildest dreams. However, before long, I realised that all the money in the world couldn't fix the brokenness I felt inside of me. The money and drugs only made things worse, leading to psychosis, paranoia, and distrust of even those closest to me. I was miserable, depressed, scared, and completely out of answers. I wanted to change, but I didn't know how. You see, you can get the prisoner out of prison, but for someone like me to recover, you need to get the prison out of the prisoner. One fateful morning, the law caught up with me, and I was taken to Morningside Police Station. An old school friend, now a police detective, was there. I remember the way he looked at me, his eyes asking, "Shane, what happened to you, mate?" I was embarrassed. I landed in Roma Street Watch House, and after hours of listening to the same old rotten rubbish from the cells, I thought, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. Broken and at the end of it all, I cried out to God, a God I didn't believe in, and said, "I want to change. Get me out of here, God, and if you do, I promise I will go to rehab." Miraculously, I was granted bail. I went to a rehab as I had promised God, but before long I was kicked out for breaking the rules and quickly fell back into addiction. But I kept my promise, and when I found out about the Teen Teen Challenge's New Life Centre rehab, I thought I have nothing to lose. I didn't have much hope, but I was desperate to change. I remember my first day at Teen Challenge vividly. I got to the front gate and wondered if I was destined to be ruled by my addictions. I wanted to live a life of integrity and honesty, but didn't know how. In this calm and peaceful environment, surrounded by caring staff and volunteers, I began to settle down and I started to breathe. Men like Rob and Craig, who lived by their values, become role models for me. They treated me with love and respect, seeing the man I could be, not the drug addict with all the bad behaviours. Their belief in me was powerful, and it made me start to believe in the possibility of transformation and that I could change. Another person who impacted me was Wes, a volunteer at the New Life Centre. Wes spent hours with me as I wrestled with life's big questions. Those powerful conversations we had, mate, have left a permanent mark on my heart. Wes, thanks for being here tonight. The program was solid, but the people, the staff, and the volunteers left the deepest impression on me. Their humility, honesty, empathy, and boundless compassion astounded me. I felt love embrace me. I had an overwhelming sense of belonging and acceptance, and I wanted to understand the source of that kind of love. It's not easy to put into words how I felt when my time at Teen Challenge ended. I had experienced so much growth and love there. I no longer identified as a broken man. I had learnt to like myself. The program had instilled a foundation in which I could build my life free from addictions. Whenever I'm down south, I visit the Teen Challenge Rehab Centre. It means so much to walk back into the place where my life was so radically changed. I love meeting with the men in the program too, and sharing a message of hope and encouragement that change is possible.
I grew up in North Queensland. Sorry, can't see. My dad left when I was 2, leaving a painful wound in my life. My heart was often heavy with missing him. My mum stepped up, working hard as a single mother, to give me and my siblings the best childhood possible. I have fond memories of growing up in Mareeba, playing with cousins and having outdoor adventures on my grandma's farm. Mum and Grandma provided a stable upbringing, and I felt deeply loved by both. They loved God and lived their faith, showing me that Jesus is a loving and caring God. I did see my dad occasionally and loved his attention. He was charismatic, but had a rough childhood, and he struggled with addiction himself. And this affected every area of his life. Despite his flaws, I looked up to him and in many ways wanted to be like him. School had always been a challenge for me, and at 13 we moved to Cairns, which had a destabilising effect on me. It was then that I began smoking cigarettes and marijuana with my cousin. At 15, against my family's wishes, I went to live with my dad. I dropped out of school and was initiated into a world of drugs, criminality, and chaos. I got involved with a guy double my age, introduced by my father. This man was a speed dealer, and our relationship was toxic. On several occasions, I was given Rohypnol, which opened me up to experience serious abuse. These years were marked by a lifestyle that destroyed my mental and physical health. With a backdrop of heavy drug use, countless police raids, and numerous drug charges. I knew I needed to get away and stop taking drugs, so I left for Melbourne. My sister helped me get my own place, and I got a great job at a travel agency. But it wasn't long before I was taking drugs again. I had to work a second job to support my drug use. I became exhausted, and after 7 long years, I returned up north. My life continued to get more and more complicated. I got involved with a guy who was into speed, cooking, taking, and distributing this drug. I experienced one disaster after another. I felt trapped, but didn't know how to escape this life. I didn't know how to escape my life. I was arrested and remanded in custody. It might sound strange, but I felt relieved when I went to jail, as it created space for me to gather my thoughts, and it was here I found my faith in God again. Even though I was surrounded by chaos and dysfunctional people, I felt God's presence, and I experienced a peace that surpassed all understanding. When I was in jail, I found out my dad had cancer. I was devastated. But I got the opportunity to speak with Dad on the phone, and it was in these calls that I was able to share my new faith in God and pray with him. Dad found a new faith in God too. When he died, I was numb. I couldn't feel the loss. It was too painful. Whilst in prison, a chaplain, Jenny, came alongside me and gave me support, guidance, and love. I wouldn't have got through without you, Jenny. Thanks for being in my life, and thanks for being here tonight. I was desperate for change and decided to go to Teen Challenge. I felt the God my mum and grandma had told me about was looking after me now, and for this I was grateful. When I got to Teen Challenge, I was at my lowest, thin, pale, tired, and at the end of it. I was undone. I felt empty, but I was ready to do the hard work of getting well. I was in rehab when I found out I was pregnant. I sat on the edge of the bed in shock. Jody, my caseworker and lifeline, sat beside me, her arm around me. She said, "You can do this. You can give this baby all the love it needs." Her encouragement gave me strength. The rehab is set on a hill in a beautiful rural landscape. The beauty of the place, the welcome and support from the staff was transformative for me. The staff and volunteers were like a breath of fresh air. For me, this place became hope on a hill. I made beautiful friendships, and I was loved and accepted in a way that I had never experienced. I spent nearly a year in rehab, and being in the program and reconnecting with God changed me body, mind, and spirit. What does life look for me now? I live a beautiful, ordinary, and uncomplicated life with Shane and our 3 children, Caleb, Peter, and Chelsea. I spend my days being the mother, wife, and woman I always hoped to be. I have found joy in a way I never thought possible. I still get woken at night, but it is no longer by the sound of police bashing on the door, but rather by one of my children who needs a hug and a mum's reassurance. Our life is still messy, but it's the kind of mess that gets cleaned up with Chuck's cloth and tissues, not a stay in hospital, rehab, or prison. It is a life with more light than shade. I know where I belong, and I know who I belong to.
Bec, it's hard to tell our story in a condensed form, isn't it? We've been through so much individually and together now. Bec was pregnant with my child, and she had to do more jail time. She went to hospital appointments in prison clothes and handcuffs. When I think of that, I feel devastated for Bec. On top of that, she lost her grandma, one of the most important people in her life, and she wasn't able to go to her funeral. Yes, things were hard, life was complicated. After rehab, we knew we had to continue working on our emotional, physical, and spiritual well-being. We had developed unhealthy codependent patterns, common in addiction, and decided to separate to focus on our individual growth. Bec moved back home, and I followed her to Cairns several months later. Living apart, we practiced a new lifestyle based on faith, values, and the belief that we could continue to change. Things were challenging, but we remained committed to our recovery. We shared custody of our little boy, and we gradually rebuilt our relationship, becoming friends again and learning to trust each other. We got married a few years shy of Caleb's 5th birthday, and obviously moved in together again. I love my family in a way I could never have dreamed of. My kids bring so much joy and happiness and constantly keep me on my toes. My wife, Rebecca, well, she is a woman of integrity. She is such a blessing, a fantastic mum, and loyal to her friends and family. I love and trust her dearly. I live a simple, honest, and meaningful life, and I'm grateful for that. Although far from perfect, I like the man I now see in the mirror. These days, I work helping men who are just like how I used to be, men who are angry, broken, and lost, living empty and chaotic lives. I go into the same prisons where I was once an inmate, but I am no longer in chains. I can't tell you how much it means to me when someone I'm working with tells me I am a role model to them. I believe in these men in the same way people like Craig and Rob believed in me and saw in me the man that I could be. Rebecca and I have now both lived longer in recovery than we did in addiction. It was nice to tip those scales, I think, just whatever that's worth. But we wouldn't be here without Teen Challenge, and without God, the source of all love, and without people like you who are willing to believe that people like Rebecca and I can change. The transformation in our lives continues, and Rebecca and I are living proof that your investment into our lives works. Thank you.